If we were going to give managers a 1 day training, what should it include? So Summer has a list of things that she's listed that I think are incredibly awesome. So we're gonna march through her list, and I'll help paint some context.
Sure thing. So I was really excited to see this question come through because I feel like there has never been enough manager training. And we see that translate to unhappy teams, ineffective leadership, unhappy managers. I mean, the list goes on of, the result of not giving managers appropriate managerial training. Because let's face it, Joey, in most companies, managers become managers not necessarily because they're amazing people leaders. They often become managers because of seniority, and there's not typically additional training that they're given on how to be a manager. We're just expecting them to figure it out.
That's right. And it's such a shame that it's been this way for so long, and we haven't taken a collective pause as a workforce to say, hey, this isn't working. Um, but I think you have some really great ideas on if someone were to come to a jumpstart 1 day manager boot camp, maybe somewhere on a beach or in a cool city. What should we teach them so that they can go back and be effective? So, what's the first thing that you had in mind?
So, in no specific order, the first one that I wanted to chat about is performance management. This is a pretty common area that we support as consultants with our clients. They'll reach out to us. We'll discuss, really what's happening with the team member and their performance, and coach the manager and teach them how to get the results that they're looking for. And, when I think about from a proactive standpoint, if we were to set up managers with this type of training, how much more effective they would be in addressing performance, even in smaller bites, which is my approach. Not waiting until something becomes so big that it feels like it might be impossible to recover from.
First of all, training in and of itself is a great way to boost engagement because what you're allowing someone to do is learn a new skill that they get to roll out in your organization. So, um, I think that more companies, as you set your agendas and budgets for 2023, I know internally we've recalibrated our training and what that looks like for our team. You should be looking at how you can invest in your managers because they have a ripple effect on the performance of your employees.
I would say performance management, if there was nothing else that time was spent on, I do think is pretty high up there on the priority list. I was trying to think of, well, what's my number one? But I think that this is so important because if you have a team member that's underperforming, then ideally you have managers equipped with the tools from the training to be able to help turn this team member around. I mean, because that is the goal, to help them be successful. And also, if you have a team member who has high potential, finding ways to continue to challenge that individual so that they don't get bored, so that they don't feel the need to leave to grow within the organization. I think there's two sides of it. We're typically engaged on the, hey, help me handle this team member who's not quite cutting it. But I think it's important to note that there's really two sides to performance management. Also, goal setting and ensuring that team members are aligned with, individual department and or company goals. Because without that, you'll have team members kind of going in all different directions, and it's hard to bring them together if you're trying to get that alignment further down the road versus from the very start.
Yeah, and performance management is such a critical thing because what it really is your ability to manage accountability and coaching in an organization. And so, some particular aspects of your performance management module might be, uh, identifying and eliminating bias, how to have great coaching conversations. When do you know an employee is coachable when they're not? Um, how do you know, or what are some of the tools and strategies or templates to walk through really good performance conversations? So all of this goes into making your manager stronger and making your team stronger because your manager will be better at raising everybody up and holding them to the appropriate standard.
I love it. I would say that one of the items that came to mind that really could kind of be lumped into the same one that I was thinking of was uh, ensuring managers are trained on how to inspire and motivate their team. I mean, it is ultimately part of performance management, but I think going back to what I was mentioning earlier, sometimes there's just this intense focus on performance management is like an underperforming team member, but it's not. The other item I wanted to chat about, Joey, was providing managers with training on legal compliance. Now, I think there's this misunderstanding that, well, if I'm a manager, like I don't need to know legal compliance and that wage and hour stuff, that's all HR. So I'm just going to do whatever HR says and I'm going to be good.
But the unfortunate thing that happens sometimes is managers will do stuff without going to HR, and it's unfortunate when you don't know the right thing. But it is a huge, huge benefit when managers do know the right thing and they can make the right legal call without having to consult HR.
Yeah, and some of the examples that I just wanted to chat about, I know these are probably pretty common for you, Joey, but for our listeners that may not be as familiar, the training that I would typically provide to a manager is still very high level, but it's very essential. So, for example, when it comes to wage and hour, knowing that in certain states there are break requirements and knowing the nuances of those break requirements so that as a company you don't face potential fines and that you have happy employees. But also I think about interviewing. So managers are often involved in the interviewing process, and different states have, well, now a plethora of different things that you can't ask. And so understanding where this job is posted, and where you're recruiting from, some of those nuances, ensuring that managers are aware of what they can't ask is really, really important, because you don't want them unintentionally breaking the law, but also putting your company at risk. And I think it's overall just kind of a poor reflection on the company as well if managers aren't equipped with just some of that basic knowledge that a manager should have.
Right, right. The risk is the big thing, and it also segues into culture too. Because if you have a culture that is unethical or immoral or makes people uncomfortable about pushing the limits of the law, that can be in and of itself a reason for people to be disengaged or to want to move to another organization.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you have a couple topics that you would include in a one-day manager training. So, what do you think? Like, what comes to mind?
Wow. Well, so for a manager one day training, I would absolutely include performance management. I think that is the one of the most important things. But what I would probably just get to the basics of what does it mean to be a manager? Like making sure that everyone that walked out of the training had a clear understanding of what the the textbook definition of what it means to be a manager and kind of hold that like here, right? But then have a conversation about what it means to be a leader and someone who helps move an organization forward and really try to inspire. Because textbook, a manager is someone who helps maintain, right? Maintains order, maintains ecosystem. If something is performing at a low level, you're supposed to bring it up at a high level, right? But a leader can help even push those barriers a little bit more in a good way. So I would add, what does it take to be an effective leader? That might include persuasion. That might include goal setting. That might include, just checking your company's vision and values and making sure you're aligned in how you execute things. I would start there because we we could probably ask 10 people what it means to be a manager, and they'll probably say 10 entirely different things. And so just more more concrete understanding of what a manager is, what the role is, and how you can take that next step to be maybe an influential leader or a coach or
Mhm.
something like that.
I do. I think that is so important, and I love to see organizations when they invest in this type of training and follow up with them 6, 12, or more months down the road to hear just real life examples of how it's transformed their organization. And I think it is an ongoing effort. So it's not, like most trainings, it's not just a one time and you can check the box and expect to have fantastic results. But the last item that I wanted to mention, because I know we're kind of short on time, is communication training. And I've seen this in organizations be such an incredible tool. And some companies will do like DISC training or insights training or other similar branded training, but ultimately it is understanding more about one's self and the different styles that exist and being able to recognize the different styles by going through the training with the understanding that we may be different, but if we understand it and we apply it in our life, then we can find a way of meeting in the middle and having less miscommunication.
Yeah.
And um, having gone through those trainings in the past, if we could take every manager through it, I think it would make the biggest difference in the world.
Well, and we can because we have a certified disc coach on our team. So if you're interested in getting your assessment for yourself or for your team, we can make that happen. We're slightly over time, so I wanted to maybe give you Summer any parting thoughts or additional topics that you would include in a one day. So, do you have anything else that you would want to include, or did we cover all the bases?
I did have one more, but I don't think we need to talk about it because it's pretty self explanatory. But it is training managers how to have effective one on one meetings um, instead of just freestyling it every time.